computerized. From the Magic City, the sun and fun capital of the world, Miami, Florida, through the incredible speed of the NCR 315 computer, Warner Productions proudly presents the all-time heavyweight championship tournament. Hi, everybody. This is Murray Warner at Miami Convention Hall once again for the 10th fight of the all-time heavyweight tournament. Tonight, the second fight in the quarterfinal round, featuring the Ruby Man, Ruby Bob Fitzsimmons, and the Brown Bomber Joe Louis. The all-time heavyweight tournament is made possible through the cooperation of the City of Miami, Mr. Nat Fleischer, publisher of Ring Magazine, Chris and Angelo Dundee, and Mr. Hank Kaplan, former president of the World Boxing Historians Association. We'll be back in a moment with Guy LeBeau and the details and some comments about tonight's match. Back at Miami Convention Hall, and here's Guy LeBeau.
Thank you very much, Maury Warner. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've got another of the matches that have been so great in this tournament, Murray. An old-timer against the modern era fighter. You know, I think when these fights are over, people are going to have even more respect for the old-time fighters than ever. They can wallop as well as anyone, and boy, how they can take a punch. We've really had some goers in this tournament. And little Ruby Bob Fitzsimmons is obviously going to be a tough nut for Joe Louis to crack tonight. Ruby Bob, despite a big 23-pound disadvantage in weight, went 15 rounds with Jack Sharkey to win his first round fight on points. He was down twice in the early rounds, but by the end of the fight, it was Sharkey who was giving out of gas.
Yeah, Guy, some of the fighters from that era could really go, as we've surely seen in the early fights of this tournament. Jack Johnson, although he was knocked down in the last 3 rounds, stayed in his fight to the finish in his loss to Max Baer. And that first round fight between John L. Sullivan and Jimmy Braddock was a fierce 15-rounder. And then last week, Sullivan lost by a KO in 7 rounds to Jack Dempsey. And what a pounding Jim Jeffries gave Jersey Joe Walcott. The Boilermaker was cut up in the early part of the fight, but he knocked Walcott out in the 10th.
So, Ruby Bob, the smallest man in our tournament at 172 pounds, figures to show Joe Louis endurance like he's never seen tonight. And he'll give Joe's midsection a going over, too.
Fitzsimmons held 3 different championships when he first came to this country from England. He won the middleweight championship in 1891, and then took the heavyweight championship from Gentleman Jim Corbett with a famous solar plexus punch on a 14th round knockout. Kill the body, and the head dies. And they're still saying that to this day, Guy. Ruby Bob held on to the title for 2 years before losing it to Jim Jeffries on an 11-round knockout in 1903. Little man from England won his 3rd title, the light heavyweight championship, in a grueling 20-round match with George Gardner.
Well, of course, Fitzsimmons can't exactly be called a defensive fighter, Murray, but he can counterpunch like nobody's business, especially with that left hook off Lewis's right. Now, Ruby Bob won 23 of his 41 fights by KO, so that shows you he can punch. He'll be giving up 28 pounds to Joe, and he's 34 years old, another fighter who matured rather late in life. Fitzsimmons' best punches, the left hook, especially to the body, and a powerful right cross.
And just to remind the fans how Ruby Bob can go, let's let them hear just a few parts of the first fight in this tournament when he fought Jack Sharkey.
Speeding up the attack. There's a crashing left at the head of Sharkey. Another good left to Sharkey's head. Fitz without lowering the right shoulder. Pounds a wicked right to the heart. Ignores a flickering left to the face and is slamming away with left and right at Sharkey's head. Missing 2, but getting in 2 good shots at the head. This is the 2-fisted Bob Fitzsimmons attack you have been hearing about. And all the time, his head is carried high straight, but he hits so strongly, Sharkey cannot stay with the exchanges. Jack backs off, jabs and jabs and jabs again. Misses several, lands several lightly. Taps a light right to the body, jabs the face again and ears of Fitzsimmons. But all have been light blows, and it is Fitzsimmons with the bomb. Here is Bob Fitzsimmons driving a looping left hard to the mouth. There's the good power as he rams home a right to the side of Sharkey. Sharkey jabbing and little else, moving back out of range, definitely giving ground. This turned out for him to be a let's stay alive round. Little or no clinching here, you may realize, but Fitz now lets up. Sharkey comes near, and it seems they both fall into the welcome security of a clinch in a neutral corner. And referee Ruby Goldstein immediately appeals to the men to break it up, and they do with just a tap at Fitz's back. Fitz can punch and punch, and his gameness can be supported by incredible stories of his activities in the ring. The men are separated and brought to ring center at the bell.
Now, we'll be back in 1 minute. Lewis had an outstanding first-round fight, too. He knocked out Jess Willard, another powerhouse, in the 15th round.
And cut him up badly, Murray, so very badly you have to wonder if that's not going to be a big part of tonight's fight. Whether the Brown Bomber can bust up Fitzsimmons or not. If Ruby Bob can keep from getting cut, then some say he's got every chance in the world.
But I don't think there's any question that Lewis has to rate as a heavy favorite this evening. The Las Vegas line makes him a 3-1 choice. Just 23 years old at the peak of his career and a beautifully molded 200 pounds. Lewis is 6 feet 1.5 inches tall, and he radiates power. 68 knockdowns in his 71 fights. Joe can fight defense if he has to, and he's an outstanding counterpuncher. If Fitzsimmons wins tonight's bout, it'll be the biggest upset of the tournament.
Lewis fought some great fighters, remember that. Max Schmeling, Jack Sharkey, Jimmy Braddock, Ezzard Charles, what a field. It wasn't all a bum-of-the-month campaign, not by a long shot. And he was champion for 12 years. What a record.
He had that classic right hand to the head, and he could cut you up with the jab. The Brown Bomber, what a hitter. Of course, he'll have to be careful about Fitzsimmons' right hand. That's the punch that hurt Joe. Lewis won 54 of his 71 fights by knockouts, a truly remarkable record. And he was knocked out just twice by fighters in this tournament, Schmeling and Rocky Marciano.
We'd like to remind you that tonight's winner goes on to meet Jack Dempsey, the Manassas Mauler, in the semifinal round of the tournament here at Miami Convention Hall. Then we'll have another great offensive fight next week. Max Baer versus undefeated Rocky Marciano. And then the following week we wind up our quarterfinal matches. Cassius Clay against the mighty Boilermaker Jim Jeffries.
Rocky Marciano, along with many other former heavyweight champions, so many other boxing figures, is here tonight at Miami Convention Hall for the second quarterfinal fight in our all-time heavyweight tournament. And agreed to talk with us, and did. We asked him about Joe Louis.
He was a great amateur and a greater professional. Louis was probably the more superior boxer, probably as superior as a fighter. He had the killer instinct, which was so important, and so did Jack Dempsey. In my book, Louis might have been just a shade above Dempsey.
We also asked him about Bob Fitzsimmons.
I have met fans who think that Bob Fitzsimmons might have been one of the all-time greats. He certainly could punch, and because he could punch to the body in that time made him a great fighter and a champion. Just the fact that he could go to the body. I think it was since his time that we in professional boxing learned that the body attack is so much more important than an attack to the head. We say that a complete fighter is one that can punch to the body. It is very, very important in the overall picture. He had this down pat, and I think that it made him a champion, and he was a great fighter.
And to predict tonight's fight,
I'd have to pick Joe Louis. I think that Joe could have probably taken what Fitzsimmons could give, unless Fitzsimmons hit him right in the solar plexus with that terrific body punch. But I think that Joe learned his trade well, had a better defense than most of the old-timers, was able to keep his arms close to his body and punch close and inside.
Here's how Rocky rated Louis among fighters he's seen.
This was the greatest fighter I have ever seen in my lifetime. I guess in Joe Louis's prime, he was about as great as anybody could ever be.
Angelo Dundee, who managed and trained Cassius Clay, one of the most knowledgeable and most active people in boxing today, gave us his opinion of Joe Louis.
Joe Louis, you have to it'd take 1,000 words to describe Joe Louis. Joe Louis was the forerunner of good fighters. Joe Louis was the advent of a left jab. Joe Louis was the guy that thrilled the people. When he hit you with one punch, 7 followed. He was a combination fighter. He was just tremendous to look at. He must have been a fantastic fighter in his prime.
Then told us what he thinks of Bob Fitzsimmons.
I heard that he was a tremendous good banger for such a small man. And I've heard these stories naturally that he was big on top, small on the bottom. But anybody that size, it's hard for me to visualize him beating a good big man.
Matt Fleischer of Ring Magazine is one man here tonight who can give us, I think, expert opinion with a capital E on Ruby Bob Fitzsimmons. And I talked with him about Bob.
Bob had a powerful body punch, and when he landed the solar plexus, such as he did in the body of Mr. Jim Corbett, the opponent would indefinitely double up in pain and be stopped or knocked into a state of inefficiency for the rest of the contest.
Then, of course, I put the questions in that about the Brown Bomber.
Joe Louis was a marvelous all-around good fighter. He, unfortunately, was what we call a shuffler type, a man who did not possess the type of ring cleverness that enabled him to stand on his toes, but in order to obtain his objective, it was necessary for him to shuffle in, keep going in by degrees to catch his man, but once he cornered him, the man had very little opportunity to get out of his reach, and a knockout usually was the result.
In a moment, we'll get Jack Kern's views, but right now, let's take time out. Joe Louis hit the floor a few times, but it didn't seem to make any difference. Let's ask Jack Kearns, Jr., son of the famous manager who lives here in Miami, about Louis's recuperative powers.
Joe always got up. And it seemed when he got up that the individual who knocked him down was more scared after they knocked him down than they were before. He could jab, he could hurt you with a jab, he could punch. He had a little left hook up tight. He didn't have to punch from a distance. He could walk up and keep walking and plodding in on you.
And then we asked for his prediction about tonight's fight.
I think that he would give Louis some trouble for 3 or 4 rounds because he was a fairly smart fighter, getting in, moving around, staying inside. But I think Joe eventually would tag him, and tag him once, and hurt him, and take him out then. There would be no next round after he got hurt. If it was the first round or the 5th round that he got hurt, that would be the end. He would hurt him and finish him.
Jersey Joe Walcott is a fellow who saw a lot of Joe Louis. I'm sure you recall that. And what I want to find out from Joe is whether he thinks Louis has the power to put away as determined and durable man as Fitzsimmons.
Well, Louis was one of the greatest, is the greatest finisher that once he got a fighter hurt. I think that it would be difficult for any fighter to survive once Louis got him in a position where he could deliver his finishes and punches.
Next, I talked to Chris Dundee about Joe Louis.
A great puncher. Joe, not a smart fighter. That was his trouble. He was a slow-thinking fighter. But for that he made up in his punching power. He had probably one of the greatest left jabs that anybody would ever have. He could hurt you with a left jab. He could bust your face open with a left jab.
And, of course, when I talked to Max Schmeling, who got a lot closer to Louis than most of us, I got a few other ideas about the Brown Bomber's cleverness.
I think Joe Louis, he was a man, he was a very good boxer. He did know all about boxing, and he was a very hard hitter. And he had a very quick reaction, Joe Louis, and if he saw just a little hole, then he was right in.
Jim Brannock, another fighter who saw Louis at close range, doesn't quibble about Louis's ability either.
And although Joe was slow of foot, he was the fastest puncher that I ever had the pleasure of watching, and I had a close watch of him, too.
This is how Jim commented about Joe Louis's punching that was in his memory.
He was a great fast puncher because he just fed you with a punch and hit you with 10 in a fraction of a second. But he wasn't the greatest puncher. I wouldn't say he could punch as hard as Max Baer. But he was a really good puncher. He landed often, and he was a real machine gun puncher.
Maury, I noticed that both of tonight's fighters are already in the ring. Joe Louis looking, of course, the bigger of the two, and by far. We're seconds from the start of the fight right now. And here comes Paul Berman to the center of the ring.
now, while Goldstein gives the fighters their last-minute instructions, we'll be back in just a minute with the start of tonight's fight. Lewis, expressionless, looking down toward Jack Blackburn, who's standing next to the corner, shouts up at him. Now, here's Guy.
Thank you, Murray Warner. Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the quarterfinal round between the ex-champions Lewis and Fitzsimmons, which on the face of it has to be an incredible matching. Fitzsimmons 172, Lewis 200. Out in the center of the ring, both men touch gloves. Lewis a smooth, well-oiled fighting machine. Fitzsimmons a rather irregular physical specimen, top chest heavy. They're off, and will this be an early KO for Lewis of the dynamite fists? Here's Fitzsimmons, left hand extended, right hand cooked at the waist. He takes a modification of the classic stance. Lewis has the left hand out, but not in jab position. They circle in the center of the ring. Lewis feints with the left hand. Fitzsimmons does not respond. Fitzsimmons feints with the left hand, and Lewis merely jerks his head slightly to the other side. Testing of the reflexes, nothing more. Fitzsimmons allowed Jack Sharkey to gain a considerable lead on him in the first fight in this tournament. Whether he will go out more immediately and try to command this fight with the dangerous brown bomber is a matter that should be decided fairly soon, I think. Lewis sends a good jab to the mouth. Fitzsimmons dances back a step. The guard is up. Lewis advances slowly on Bob Fitzsimmons, but Fitzsimmons is not moving from side to side, considered a traditional foot maneuver against Lewis in order to avoid being trapped. Lewis sends a light left jab to the head. There is another light left jab to the head by Lewis. The answer to that from Bob Fitzsimmons, a good, solid left hook to the chin of Lewis, and Lewis retreats a step, regaining his timing. He now knows something about Fitzsimmons' possible direct counter to the left jab. The trying and the prying continues. Fitzsimmons has moved his opponent back to the center of the ring. Fitzsimmons' head, complete with receding hairline, is not built in the usual large-sized fighter athletic type. From facial reference, he could be your bookkeeper and, at worst, your income tax collector. Lewis moving a half step forward toward Fitzsimmons. Now drives a straight right to the body. There's a pretty shot. Fitzsimmons takes the blow. There is no counter in turn. Bob Fitzsimmons, make no mistake about it, is a brutal body puncher on his own, and this will probably be in evidence later on, or certainly later on in this fight. Now Lewis moves back to the scene of action, moves to his left, a short half step, hooks the left of the head, tries another one, but Fitzsimmons blocks the second one beautifully. And Lewis is tied into a clinch. Here's Ruby Goldstein to separate him. Fitzsimmons has taken no real offensive position yet. He is an attacker. He does have a high-grade two-fisted flailing attack. The action here, though, is considerate of the man he faces. Lewis on the break does go to the attack. Lewis sends a hard left to the face, and on the heels of it, a hard left hook to the mouth. Fitzsimmons accepting the challenge, whips a straight left to the chin, fires a right to the body. It grazes Lewis, and Fitzsimmons then hooks a hard left to the head. Lewis takes and retreats, but stabs two lefts at the nose. Lewis feeds the attack. Here are two hard left jabs to the face by Lewis, and Fitzsimmons hooks back to the face. A good shot here by Lewis, and there's the bell.
Both Lewis and Fitz showed respect for each other's punching power in round one and were careful not to be trapped. Now, here's Guy.
Okay, Murray. This is the great computerized fight between Joe Lewis and Bob Fitzsimmons, an immortal in his own time. He has to be regarded possibly the greatest body puncher in the history of the game. He scored more than 15 KOs with body punches. Think about that. At the center of the ring, by the way, I noticed that Fitzsimmons' nose is ripped at the bridge. There is a bleeding trickle. They circle. Lewis stabs two light left jabs to the face. Fitzsimmons faking with a left return, and with beautiful timing, drives a straight right instead to the mouth of Lewis, and Lewis certainly is surprised. Lewis stumbles back, surprised without question, and the other question is, how badly did it hurt? It certainly surprised him badly. Lewis can be struck over the left if it is the lazy left jab. He has two kinds or three kinds. The lazy one always leaves him open for a good right hand. Fitzsimmons is on him again. Here's a left and right to the head. Lewis fires a short right to the body in retaliation. Tries to hook back at Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons missed up his return blows in midair. It's like fighting through a spider's web, I can tell you that. Lewis takes another right on the chin. Lewis is against the ropes. which is not the way it usually is. Fitzsimmons presses a hook to the body, and Lewis is forced into a clinch. They hurt. The left to the body was the same kind of blow with which Bob Fitzsimmons dethroned Jim Corbett. To my knowledge, Fitzsimmons is the only fighter to have ever taken a championship by a body punch. Since his time, the body punch at best, with the exception of Jack Dempsey, has been developed only as an auxiliary weapon. Lewis a little wobbly as both men are taken to the center of the ring. Lewis has been shaken by a straight right to the chin and hurt at the body. Lewis now, after the attack, stings with the left jab, left hook to the face. Up Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons tries a straight right to the chin. Lewis is there. The block is made, but Fitzsimmons has a good distance and clean lane, and there is a good lift to the body of Lewis. A left and right virtually administered by Fitzsimmons. Lewis retreats again. And now, Fitzsimmons seems to be wrapping up the offensive guns, and I believe both men have made their point. Lewis jabs again, Fitzsimmons parries. And here is Joe Lewis with a light right to the head. But here is Lewis back again. Here is a left to the head and a right to the chin by Joe Lewis. And it stings Fitzsimmons. Here is a beautiful combination by Lewis. A stiff left jab to the mouth. That is something Fitzsimmons doesn't own. There is a right to the jaw by Lewis. And Lewis and Fitzsimmons fall into the clinch. A pretty rally by Joe with seconds remaining in round two. Referee Goldstein has them apart, and Lewis is relentless. Lewis again with left hook and right cross to the head of Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons fires a left to the body. It lands and it's not too hard. Here is Lewis again, a left jab and a right cross to the mouth. Fitzsimmons hurt Lewis earlier, but now Joe has him on the run. And there's the bell.
Joe, looking every inch the beautiful fighting machine, dominates the ring, looking huge compared to the strangely built and slight Fitzsimmons. There's the bell, and here's Scott.
Okay, Murray. Bob Fitzsimmons has started on the offense in faster order than he did against Sharkey, whom he allowed to build up a substantial lead. Fitzsimmons, I think, would find a comeback fight against Lewis comparatively futile. At the center of the ring, the brown bomber who tops Fitzsimmons by nearly a couple of inches is at full throttle very swiftly, and Lewis tries to bring Fitzsimmons under charge. He gums a hard left hook to the head. There is a right cross to the mouth that must have hurt, and Fitzsimmons immediately has to retire behind the ramparts of his big arms and try to take cover as Lewis follows immediately. Lewis hits the head again, misses a right. Fitzsimmons uncovers one eye and one ear, peeks out, leaps to Lewis's face, and there's a soft blow only with the left hand. Lewis, in retaliation, jabs to the head, crosses a solid right, and although Fitzsimmons loves to fight, loves to flurry, Lewis's first two punches of the fight, or of this round, are apparently dominant enough, and Fitzsimmons wishes to fight another day, not now. Here is the clinch right over our microphone. The bridge of Fitzsimmons' nose looks mashed and wide open. It's bleeding, but now I notice so is his mouth. There is no attempt in infighting by either man. Referee Ruby Goldstein takes them out to the center of the ring, and again I report Fitzsimmons bleeding a bit more badly. They break. This is the quarterfinal computerized round. Joe Lewis and Bob Fitzsimmons. Lewis goes to the jab. Fitzsimmons crossing Lewis for just a moment, tries a left counter to the body. Lewis has got that part of the body turned sideways. The blow lands ineffectually. Lewis misses a right to the face. Fitzsimmons hooks a left to the mouth. Their arms are tangled as they move into a clinch. And referee Ruby Goldstein is summoned again. Here's Lewis on the break, shooting two hands to the ribs. Fitzsimmons works on the body, two arms to the body, and they move into a clinch again in seconds. On the break, Lewis rips left and right to the body. Lewis hooks the head with a hard left, and Fitzsimmons has been tagged by that left. Definitely, Fitzsimmons has been tagged by the left, and Lewis applies another left and right to the head, a left and right to the jaw by Lewis, and Fitzsimmons is down. Fitzsimmons is down the count. 4, 5, 6, he'll be all right. 7, 8, he's up at the count of 9. He's up at the count of 9, shaken, but he'll be able to resume. He made it. Ruby Goldstein is taking him out of the neutral corner, closer to the center, wiping his gloves off. Joe Lewis is champing at the bit, and there is the green light. Fitzsimmons gamely has his hands up. Fitzsimmons boxing. Fitzsimmons misses a right to the body. Lewis drops his head back to the left of the head. Fitzsimmons is short with the left hand and still is groggy. He needs more time, and he successfully takes Joe to a clinch. Boy, that was close. And now they're broken up again in the center of the ring. There is the right left hand by Lewis. He looks for an opening. He's trying to put him away with the right one. He can't find it. Now out in the center of the ring again, and there's the bell.
Joe Louis was on the verge of ending it all last round. He had Fitz in trouble repeatedly, and the knockdown may signify more to come. There's the bell, and here's God.
Okay, Murray, Joe Louis and Bob Fitzsimmons in a marvelous match that only the marvel of this century's computers can possibly match. Out at the center of the ring, it's important to mention Fitzsimmons has given away considerable weight, and it could be a factor. Louis opening, jabs at the head, moves off to his right. Fitzsimmons showing fine comeback form. You'd hardly suspect, looking at him now, that he was just short of being knocked out. At least he went down, stayed there till the count of 9. Louis jabs at Fitzsimmons again. Fitzsimmons comes back with a fine left hook high on the head of the brown bomber. Fitzsimmons does not move his defenses as Joe keeps on jabbing. He takes a small step to his left to be even with Joe, who's moving slowly to his right on the jab. Louis again, the jab to the mouth as he moves into range, squared with Fitzsimmons, and Fitzsimmons drives a wicked hook to the body, and Joe did not block that one, and it drives him back. Now he's set again. That did drive Louis back. Louis feints at the head. Fitzsimmons has his gloves up in front of Joe's face, feinting and faking, feinting and faking. Joe looks through the maze of gloves, hooks a good left to the head, a right cross to the mouth by Joe, but takes a straight right in return, but not hard, and they're in a clinch. Referee Ruby Goldstein comes to the scene to break them up, and they break cleanly. Weight here has not yet been a factor, but we might point out Fitzsimmons has often given away 20 or 30 or even more pounds to an opponent and won. But when you give it to Joe, it's like a small pistol engaging the brand new GI carbine. Out at the ring center again, Joe goes to the left jab. Here's a good jab to the mouth. Fitzsimmons does not try to return the jab. He hasn't much of a jab. Fitz is bleeding at the mouth. Louis is one of the best jabs in the business. It's a deadly knife and listed as his second best punch. They move out to the center of the ring again. Fitzsimmons tries the left of the body. Joe blocks. Joe blocks a right that comes wailing in seconds later. And you remember that Tony Galento shot Louis up with fierce belts at the midsection, and Joe could take it down there. Louis, after the attack, jabs the mouth again at Fitzsimmons. Here's Joe with a pretty 1-2, a left hook and right cross to the mouth. Fitzsimmons throws a left bomb again that lands hard at the body, and they move to the clinch. For some strange reason, Louis is never compared against the bold era fighters. A Dempsey, yes, but a Marciano, no. It's probably because he's not known as a brawler. At the center of the ring, Louis hooks to the head, but Bob Fitzsimmons, who loves to mix with anyone, jabs and misses, but hooks a hard up to the head, following that with a big right bomb to the head, which makes Joe stumble a bit. He misses a right. Fitzsimmons tags him with a right, but Joe hooks and tosses to the place. A beautiful exchange. Fitzsimmons' mouth has been cut and is bleeding across from a previous cut. Joe jabs the face, jabs the mouth. Fitzsimmons hooks a beautiful left and right to the head, and there's the bell.
Fitzsimmons showed remarkable recuperative powers, jolting the brown bomber while taking hard retaliatory shots from Joe. There's the bell, and here's God.
Right. Joe Louis and Bob Fitzsimmons anxious to go to the next round in this all-time heavyweight tournament. Waiting in the wings, Jim Jeffries, Rocky Marciano, and other greats. At the center of the ring, Louis jabs the face of Fitzsimmons. It's a solid shot. Fitzsimmons slaps back to the left and begins now to wave his left like a mechanical arm working in gear. It's right under Joe's nose, and it's certainly constant. It upsets him, but he is trying to see around it. Joe tries the straight right over the waving hand, and Fitzsimmons puts a left to the body in beautiful style. Louis has to dance back to get his timing. Louis is the picture athlete, trim at the hip, beautifully coordinated at the muscles. Fitzsimmons continues to advance on Joe. The left is spitting out from that crooked elbow, but it's Joe taking the initiative and sending a good right to the head, and Fitzsimmons has to move away. That was a good right by Joe, and suddenly they're at each other. Look at them. They're throwing lefts and rights to the head. They're belting each other's heads silly in the center of the ring, and the crowd is roaring. Out of nowhere, each man spontaneously sprung at the other and started looping lefts and rights at the head, and now they've retired, taken a beat. And now Joe Louis begins to shuffle Fitzsimmons toward the rope. That was a flurry. He has respect, of course, for that man, Bob Fitzsimmons, and his bag of tricks. Bob must have had a lot going for him to accomplish winning 3 different professional titles. Louis at range now. There he is with a jab at the glancing blow. Lewis jabs again. Fitz tries another straight right at the head. It's a blaster, and Joe comes back fighting again. Looping a left to the head, firing a right hard at the body. Fitzsimmons yields this time and dances away 2 steps. But Joe, with patience, takes only a step forward, and there is a brief pause in the action. But we have really had some. No one could foresee the spontaneous 2-man belting affair we had moments ago. Here are 2 of the best punchers in the business, and they both have great personal courage. And now back to work. Lewis jabs and crosses a pretty combination to the face of Fitzsimmons. But Fitzsimmons rams Joe's head hard with the left. And here is Fitzsimmons playing a straight right to Joe's head, and they're belting away at each other again. With each punch, someone comes closer to oblivion in this elimination tournament. Now they go into a clinch, and they both need it. Ruby Goldstein separates them and takes them out to the center of the ring. I think everybody wants the breather. What flurries we've had in this round. Out at the center of the ring, Lewis jabs the face. Fitzsimmons sends the combination to the head swiftly but lightly. Joe is on the move, and he takes them in light blows. Fitz has got some good speed, though. Joe, of course, has the speed in the gloves. There may be none faster at the knuckles. Fitz misses a left to the body. Joe looks relieved. Here's Ruby Bob at long range, just tapping in the right at the body. Joe misses a short hook over the head. Fitz misses the body, and there's the bell. What a round!
Both round 4 and 5 appeared even as Fitz appeared willing to trade shot for shot with Lewis and comes off well in the exchange. And now here's God.
Every round seems a climax round. Here's Joe Louis, one of the greatest idols the ring has ever produced. He's on proof point. The computer wants to know what has Bob Fitzsimmons got to stop Joe. Fitzsimmons opens up with a straight right to the head. Lewis partially blocks, shooting his own right to the body. They go into an immediate clinch to my left, and here comes Ruby Goldstein. No doubt as the fight progresses, Joe Lewis's facility at striking could be a factor. Lewis pulls back a step off the break of the clinch. Fitzsimmons circles with him, each man going to his right. Fitzsimmons' legs are astride apart, left fist clenched very tightly, it seems. He must really hurt you with either hand. His hands are so wiry. With Lewis, Fitzsimmons can return to his method of arching back on the heels to avoid the long blows. At least he can for the present. Most of the action has been at the center of the ring. Now Lewis advances half a step forward, dragging that right leg behind him as if it's been stepped on, but it has a certain grace. Lewis hooks the head, scores, and moves off to the right, and Fitzsimmons' left counter to the body there is blocked. Lewis ducks away from a right to the head, and once more they move into a clinch tightly. Joe is a fine counterpuncher, and in Bob Fitzsimmons he meets a man rated as a great body puncher. Lewis's only deficit is carrying that left hand low, I think. Back out now near the neutral corner to my right. Lewis hooks a hard left to the head, misses a right thrust to the jaw. Fitzsimmons in retaliation drives a wicked right to the mouth of Lewis. Lewis going to the challenge. Lewis hooks a hard left to the face, a hard left to the nose by Lewis. Fitzsimmons misses 2 shots at the body. They would have hurt Joe. Joe goes to the hook again. He is moving at the hook all of this round practically. Lewis hooks the head with the left hand, a good solid right flip the hook, and Fitzsimmons rams on the flying right hand over the heart. But Lewis, with head buried, shoots at the body, leans against Fitzsimmons, who is now draped against the rope. Lewis steps back, and Fitzsimmons is in range. Here is Lewis tracking the left, throwing. Here is a right to the jaw by Lewis, and Fitzsimmons seems hurt. And Lewis knocks him down with the left. Here's the count. 3, 4, 5, 6. He'll be up, and he is up for the second time. Fitzsimmons rises at the count of 9, and now his gloves are being wiped off. He looks a little bit better than coming out of that first knockdown several rounds ago. And here is the green light for the men to square up again at the center of the ring. I'm keeping my eyes on Fitzsimmons for you. Lewis moves in, hooks the left again to the mouth of Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons gets him into a clinch. Here's referee Ruby Goldstein hustling out to the center of the ring. Lewis hard on Fitzsimmons. Lewis sends a right and left to the jaw of Fitzsimmons. Lewis steps back, trying to set him up. He jabs at the head, stings the face with that jab, hooks a right to the mouth. Fitzsimmons flailing his hands in front of him. They're good defensive weapons. He's going to hang on. He makes it at the bell.
The Lewis speed and punching power simply overwhelmed Ruby Bob, and that knockdown really left him hurt at the round's end. There's the bell. Here's God.
Okay, out at ring center, Joe Louis comes out throwing left hands. He hooks 2 lefts to the head of Bob Fitzsimmons, who doesn't seem to be concerned about them, and really, isn't it remarkable? Lewis has decked him twice thus far in this fight. Fitz returns a straight right to the body, but only lightly. Now Lewis fakes a short right to the body, and Fitz sends a good left hook counter to the body. Bob Fitzsimmons' hard counters to Lewis's right, which is the small fake or the actual throw, have resulted in Lewis sometime being hurt by Fitzsimmons' accurate counters. At the center of the ring once more for the action, Fitzsimmons slaps a right left to the head. Lewis blocks the next left. Lewis stabs hard at the face with a jab that must have busted skin, but I don't see bleeding. I do see some dried blood. Fitzsimmons was cut earlier. Fitzsimmons' arm now held very low, perhaps only with a man having less body blasting ability than Lewis can Fitzsimmons hope to flail his hands high, thus preventing the vicious left jab at the nose. They circle a couple of feet off the far ropes, Lewis taking the short steps. Lewis lands another jab at the mouth of Fitzsimmons. It's a hard one. Lewis immediately follows with left hook, right cross. Fitzsimmons answers the right cross, and there is a powerful left hook to the jaw, and Lewis goes rustling off. Now Fitzsimmons is circling at the center of the ring, and Lewis is now indeed trying to move him off against the ropes or into a corner. Lewis goes into a clinch with him. Now they separate. Lewis goes into a half clinch. Lewis works an arm free. Lewis pumps two rights to the body and against the ropes or into a corner. Lewis goes into a clinch with him. Now they separate. Lewis goes into a half clinch. Lewis works an arm free. Lewis pumps two rights to the body, and now they are all tied up tightly. Lewis sometimes does not have his right hand in guard position on his fake, and may have to devise something to offset Fitzsimmons' fine left counter, which he struck with so beautifully earlier this round. Referee Ruby Goldstein out to the center of the ring with the man. They are both in excellent shape for this bout. Lewis at his age peak 23, while Bob Fitzsimmons is 34. They move a bit more out to the center of the ring. Lewis takes a light right to the body from Fitzsimmons, but sends his own light right to the body of Bob. Lewis tries a left hook to the ribs. Fitzsimmons slaps two quick left hooks to the head. Fitzsimmons shoots a right to the head. Lewis jabs too hard left to the face, moving off, and Fitzsimmons drives a hard hook to the chin of the left hand as he proceeds. And Lewis yields and dances out of range. He is settling for the left jab, and here he is coming back into jab position. Joe Lewis and maybe Sonny Liston, you don't have to agree, are regarded as having the most potent left jab in the history of the heavyweight field by some. Now back to the action, and Lewis snaps Fitzsimmons' head back with a fine left jab to the chin. Lewis remains on target. Fitzsimmons, though, misses a hook high on the head of Lewis, and Lewis again sends a hard, stiff left jab to the mouth, a ripping left jab to the nose. Lewis crushes the cheekbone with a wicked left jab, and Fitzsimmons simply cannot defend against Lewis's left jab. There's no doubt about it. The bell.
How Fitz managed to weather the head attack launched by Lewis, I'll never know. But this tough little man keeps coming on. There's the bell. Here's Guy.
Joe Lewis brought one of the famous Lewis weapons into play, the jab, in the previous round. A weapon he used well against Lou Nova, against Max Baer, and against the better men he fought generally. At the center of the ring, Lewis sends a light left to the mouth of Fitzsimmons, and Fitzsimmons puts a hard left into the face. How can he still do that after the blasting and lashing he has taken? Fitzsimmons tries a left to the body, but Joe just edges back. Fitzsimmons' face bears marks of the blasting he took in the last round. Here is Lewis trying a shot to the body, holding back when Fitzsimmons winds up a dangerous countering left. Now Joe leaps at Fitz and hooks with the head and hard. Fitzsimmons tries the left to the body, but Joe is inside quickly. He has no cruising room, but also Fitz has no hitting room. Joe's head is buried inside, and we have a clinch. Under Joe's pressing attack, Fitzsimmons moves slightly to the left now, off the clinch, and again tries to tie Joe up, and does. Joe is wriggling on the hook, though, shooting a right to the body and a light left to the head, throwing it virtually from underneath. Bob having trouble sustaining this tiger, and now does get him in chains. They're on the ropes, and here is a solid tie-up. Fitzsimmons has always refused to recognize weight differences. Once Fitz said of the difference of 40 pounds between him and another opponent, his weight difference will be prone anyway, so it doesn't matter. He was talking about Gus Rowland. Out at the center of the ring once more, Joe Lewis has not been working at supreme speed. Maybe he's taking a little bit off the fastball and wants to coast. Fitzsimmons' hands have kept him off his game a little bit, I think. Fitzsimmons sends it good hard, left to the head, a light right to the head of Joe. Joe fires left and right in turn with strong effect. Joe wraps the body, Joe jabs the mouth and chin. And Fitzsimmons has to give ground. Lewis follows him in that shuffle. Lewis cuts across Fitzsimmons' mouth with the left hand, scores with a solid left hook and the right cross. Joe has KO'd 54 men. Many included were in the famous Bum of the Month tour, of course, but he also did knock out men like Galento and Billy Conn, and they were greats. At the center of the ring, Lewis and the great Bob Fitzsimmons, and you have to admire his great comeback sense and comeback courage. Fitzsimmons leaps at Lewis and sends a good left and right to the head. Fitzsimmons back again with a fine left and right to the head, and Joe is caught temporarily cold. Joe is caught temporarily cold and moves into a clinch. Ruby Goldstein comes out to the center of the ring, breaks them up, and Lewis wants to get back in command of the round. Lewis begins to press. Fitzsimmons is going back to the ropes as Lewis pushes him there. There is the inevitable attack method of Lewis. Lewis shoots the left to the face, comes after him. A right, left, and right to the face by Lewis. Fitz counters with a soft left to the head. Joe partially slips the counter. Joe is half a step past Bob, makes a complete turn, and comes back with a good left hook to the head, but takes a good left and right to the jaw at the bell.
Ruby Bob had his best round of the fight in round 8, rocking Joe with headshots. He appears back in the running and raring to go. There's the bell, Guy LeBeau.
Yes, indeed. Fitzsimmons must have caught a second wind in the previous round, and like in his battle with Sharkey, it may be correct to consider him behind at this point. Can he come on? He's got to begin now. At the center of the ring, Lewis jabs a left to the mouth, tries a right cross. Fitzsimmons immediately tries to counter with a hard right hand, but Lewis has not committed his body to the cross, just for hand, and Fitzsimmons' counter is parried by Lewis's hand in flight. In flight. This is virtually the first time that Lewis's right hand thrust has not brought a successful left to the mouth come steaming back from Fitzsimmons. Lewis begins to press toward Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons circles his hands in their respective orbits right in front of Lewis's face, as if he's taunting him. Fitzsimmons feinting with both hands. Fitzsimmons will stride back. Fitzsimmons pounds a hard left to the body. Lewis hooks hard to the head with the left hand and dances back, but comes right back to the firing line. Fitzsimmons fires the left hand again. Lewis blocks, moves in close, hits a hard left to the head, and sends a right to the face, but not too powerfully. Fitzsimmons, in retaliation, hooks the left to the mouth. Lewis ducks under another left at the head, but brings up a hard, straight right to the chin of Fitzsimmons that drags his head back, and it hurts. And Lewis follows quickly with a left hook to the mouth, and that hurts. Fitzsimmons takes a step backward, finds himself on the ropes, and bounces quickly off the ropes. He punishes Lewis straight under the heart. That's really using adversity to advantage. Lewis, caught off guard for the moment, falls in for the clinch, and Ruby Goldstein speeds to the job. Fitzsimmons' style generally is to bob and weave from out of a semi-crouch. This particular style has bothered Lewis in the past, and Fitzsimmons will doubtlessly use it later on. Most of his fire has been at relatively standard stance. Now back to the attack. Fitzsimmons shoots a right down at the ribs of Lewis, who was in the semi-crouch. Lewis tries a hard left hook to the head. It lands. Fitzsimmons arches back on the heels and takes some of the power at long range and nullifies it. Lewis tries another left is short with that. Lewis rushes to close in the infighting. Lewis has a bristling attack going up. Bristling attack. Here's a left to the chin, a right to the face by Lewis. A left to the head, a right to the jaw, all by Lewis. Fitzsimmons can do very, very little. Right there against the ropes. Here is Lewis burrowing in. Here's a left to the mouth, a right to the chin. Fitzsimmons is hurt, but he's still trying to fight back. And now he grabs Lewis and works him into a clinch. They're in a clinch on the far ropes. Here's Ruby Goldstein speeding to the scene. And now he takes them out to the center of the ring. And immediately Lewis is at work again. Here is Lewis backing Fitzsimmons back against the ropes. He has hurt him. And Fitzsimmons appears badly hurt. Here is Lewis with a left to the mouth, a right to the jaw. Fitzsimmons can only flail his hands in front of Lewis's face. He's doing nothing really with him except moving him up and down. Fitzsimmons takes a left to the jaw, a right to the head at the bell.
It's almost unbelievable that Ruby Bob stayed on his feet in round 9. He appears hurt more severely than when he was dropped in the 3rd and 6th. There's the bell and Guy LeBeau.
Okay, Murray, together with the judges, the referee, and the doctors here at Miami Convention Hall, we'll be keeping our eyes on Bob Fitzsimmons. Lewis comes out determined, quickly takes to the jab. Fitzsimmons has been heavily dynamited in this fight, and particularly in the last round. Here is Lewis slapping a left jab at the mouth of Fitzsimmons, but missing the right cross that follows. However, his guards are up, and Fitzsimmons does not return in counter. Fitzsimmons backs off a step. Lewis jabs to the head again, jabs the 3rd time. Fitzsimmons stops the blow in midair very well. Fitzsimmons wraps Joe Lewis on the temple lightly. Lewis moves forward aggressively, hooks the body with a good strong left hand. Fitzsimmons falling back a step or two and takes to the clinch immediately. Referee Ruby Goldstein coming over to separate the man and taking them out to the center of the ring. Fitzsimmons arching backward, slaps Lewis's face with the left hand. Lewis takes a step forward as if to counter with his left, but Fitz's right is cocked. Lewis goes back to the jab. Here's a good straight jab to the mouth of Fitzsimmons. Another good strong jab to the mouth of Bob, trickling blood, and also trickling blood at the nose. And Fitzsimmons moves back a step or two now. Now Lewis presses forward again. He's got Fitzsimmons near the ropes, and here's Lewis driving a straight right to the chin. Fitzsimmons' hands come down. He may be hurt again. Here's a left hook hard to the head by Lewis. Lewis shoots a hard left and right back to the face of Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons is draped over the ropes again. Lewis is smashing away. There's nothing to stop him now. Fitzsimmons' head is bobbing back and forth as he takes those terrible blows. Lewis is buzzing him brutally, and they're going to stop it. They're going to stop it, and fortunately so, I'm sure. Ruby Goldstein steps in between Lewis and Bob Fitzsimmons, and it is over. It's over. The great ex-champion will have to take no more. Bob Fitzsimmons took everything a human could be asked to take, and he asked no quarter. But now it is over, and finally he has yielded to the flashing dynamite of the fists of Joe Lewis, the crown bomber. So Joe Lewis wins by a TKO over the great ex-champion Bob Fitzsimmons. Come in, Mark.
What a finish. Ruby Goldstein had no choice but to stop this before someone was killed. Lewis had Fitzsimmons out on his feet. Ruby Bob wouldn't go down, but his hands at his side simply took a rain of the hardest head punches Lewis could throw. His head slamming from side to side as Lewis unloaded bombs. But Fitz just wouldn't go down. And so Joe Lewis moves on to the semifinals of this tournament by this TKO of Ruby Bob. And now Paul Vernon's in the ring. Let's join him.
This win tonight by Joe Lewis means that Joe Lewis will meet Jack Dempsey in our first semifinal match of the all-time heavyweight tournament.
You know, Mark, I believe that if you really could put that match on live, you'd probably charge $500 ringside and sell out the Orange Bowl.
Not only the Orange Bowl, but with closed circuit, you'd probably fill the Sugar, Cotton, and Rose Bowl and throw in the Astrodome to boot just to hold the ushers.
Now, I bet.
We'll be back in a minute to review tonight's fight and take a look at next week's match. Guy, I believe we'll make an exception tonight on going over our pre-fight predictions. Hardly a man now alive who ever saw Lewis box or watched him in the movies or even heard his great fights on radio would have taken Fitzsimmons at any odds. But you sure have to say that Fitzsimmons surprised everybody with his endurance and guts. I don't know when I've ever seen anybody last till the 10th in the face of such overwhelming strength and power.
Well, fella, what do you think of the chances of next week's fight going to a finish? The massive Max Baer, 214 pounds of brute strength, against the blockbuster of Brockton, Massachusetts, undefeated, unstoppable Rocky Marciano. Might I add, everybody should plan to be in their seats bright and early for that one, because it could finish at any time. And the chances of it going to the distance, very, very slim.
Well, be careful now, Guy. Don't forget that a lot of these fights have already surprised a lot of people by going to distance. I guess no man gets to be a heavyweight champion of the world without bringing a lot of heart with him. We certainly saw a marvelous example of that here tonight in Ruby Bob Fitzsimmons, who couldn't match Joe Lewis, but who refused to knuckle under, even though it was certainly obvious early that Ruby Bob would have a hard time winning this fight.
Marciano certainly doesn't have the ideal physique for a fighter. Just 5'10 and a half and 184 pounds, so that makes any one of us eligible, almost. Actually, he isn't much bigger than Fitzsimmons. We asked Rocky about that.
Well, I think that I became a dedicated fighter, and because I had single-mindedness, a purpose of winning the title, I just overcame a lot of handicaps. A lot of people thought I had too short a reach to be a heavyweight champion. A lot of people thought I wasn't big enough to be a heavyweight champion. I have the big legs and was not too fast in the ring. But of course, with a great trainer like I had, who taught me balance and how to use my strength. The one thing I really had was strength. He taught me how to take best advantage of the strength that I had and how to get low. And because I could take a punch, I could stay in there and go to the body. Body punching became a very important phase of my fighting. I hurt many opponent and was able to bring their guard down so that eventually I could punch them to the chin and take them out.
Pretty much what Bob Fitzsimmons did.
Yes, pretty much so. I think that because I trained as hard as I did, I became strong and rugged and was not afraid to take a punch and realized I had to get in close to do most damage. And so I was prepared for it. I was geared for it. And when I got into a fight, I took a punishment the first couple of 3 rounds, usually losing the early rounds, but was able to bore in and do damage with my short arm punching. That is where the arms are very close together and able to put a lot of power into 6 and 8 inch punching.
Do you think your ability to take a punch was very important?
Yes, I do. I think that I discouraged many a man who had more fighting ability than I did. That is, especially in the early part of my career, when I really knew not very much about the art of self-defense. I was able to take a punch, discouraged some of the better punchers who, after hitting me, were surprised that I was still coming in at them.
Well, Jack Sharkey described that when he said, what do you do when you hit a guy with your best Sunday punch and he just keeps coming?
And there's so much truth to that, too, because I've had it happen to me where I've hit a man right on the point of the chin, realized it should at least made him do funny things in there, and if he didn't, then I became a little discouraged and sort of had to get in closer. It has a lot to do with the psychology of boxing, too.
What about Maxie Bear?
Bear, in my book, was a fighter who was a picture fighter. He looked good in there because of his physique and being a pretty good-looking guy anyway. He could hold the man off with his long reach, and whenever he hit you with a long right-hand punch, it was curtains. Max Bear could hit as hard as any heavyweight that ever lived with a long, straight right. But here is a man who needed leverage. Here is a man who did not learn to go to the body or did not want to go to the body, either one of the two. He never learned how to put his arms up close and sort of wing them in there. He could have been a much greater fighter in my book, but he was good enough, and he was a colorful man.
How about Max in his prime going in the ring with you and you taking those shots of his? Do you think there would have been a knockdown, or that both of you would have gotten knocked down?
Yes, very possible. Man was a strong puncher, but, hitting down, too, has its disadvantages. I know I fought men who were much bigger than myself, and as they were punching downward, it did not have the same effect as if they were punching straight ahead or even punching up. Now, I have knocked out a lot of guys because I was able to punch going upwards. It just seems to have a lot more force to it, whereas when you punch down, some of the force is taken away, and somehow you don't get a clean shot. You're able to ride with the punch or block most of them or smother them. And I've never been knocked. I've been knocked down twice, but both punches came from men smaller than myself. Archie Moore, the light heavyweight champion, hit me with a right-hand punch as I was coming in, but the punch had level to it. And Joe Walcott, in our first fight, hit me with a hook, but the hook was coming from down to up.
Almost like a left-hand uppercut.
Yes, right. I have never been knocked down, or don't ever remember of being hurt with a punch that came from high to low.
You take a lot of those on top of your head, too.
Yes, you do. You're able to smother them and ride with them and just more or less take the full force away from the punch.
I certainly enjoyed just sitting here listening to you fellas, Murray. If Rocky weren't fighting in this tournament, he could be helping us broadcast it. He's very proficient. And I think we all learned a lot about the science of boxing from that conversation.
Well, let's take a minute, and then we'll be right back with a further look at next week's big quarterfinal match between Rocky and Max Baer. Back at Miami Convention Hall, where Joe Louis TKO'd Ruby Bob Fitzsimmons tonight to go into the semifinal of our all-time heavyweight tournament against Jack Dempsey. And that's going to be some fight, too. Right, Guy?
Right 1,000 times, Murray, but it can't have any more sock than next week's match, which I love. Max Baer, Rocky Marciano. Wow.
The Rock has a great record, perhaps the greatest record in boxing. 49 fights, 43 knockouts, 6 decisions. Never beaten. Down only twice, and he had his opponents down 61 times. This will be a fight without much defense. Rocky never claimed to have any, but he never gave his opponent much of a chance to get an offense started. Great condition, a little guy by heavyweight standards, 184 pounds at his prime with a reach of only 68 inches. He's 29 years old for this fight and stands 5'10 and a half.
A great little man, no doubt about that. But can a great little man beat a top-notch big man like Baer? The Livermore Larriper, 6'2 and a half. 214 big pounds. A reach of 81 inches. Only down 3 times in his life, and had 79 opponents on the deck 71 times. A crouch fighter and a headhunter, a two-fisted guy like Rocky with no defense to speak of, except that he's tough as nails, no real counterpunching abilities.
Max Baer beat the great Jack Johnson, despite Johnson's reputation as a defensive fighter, in one of the early fights of the all-time heavyweight tournament, and by a decision. Johnson was down in the 13th, the 14th, and once more in the 15th, but Max just couldn't put him away. Let's listen to a bit of the 15th round of that fight.
Both corners are on their feet shouting. Max is being implored to close with Johnson and bring the fight back to the slugging. Johnson leaps in, hooks the head, ties Max up. This fight is running into history. The big NCR 315 computer has held numerous surprises for us tonight. Johnson has apparently now abandoned the jab. It may leave his left hand extended with too little recoil power to strike at the head counters by Baer. Baer fires at the body. It's pushing, but not completely blocked. Johnson fires a wicked hook to the body, and another submarine to the belly by Johnson. And Baer, winged by the body attack, is now fighting back. Max is at the head again with left and right at the head, all by Baer. Johnson has unleashed trouble for himself. Baer now, with Johnson slowed, rips them out and faced with left and right. Johnson vainly tries to counter. Max is at him again with a brutal right to the head, a left and down, another straight right to the face. Johnson weaving around. He's hit by another right, and Johnson is down. Johnson is down. With only a little left in this round. Here is the count. 5, 6. He will resume. He is going to get up at 9 and does. Referee Ruby Goldstein immediately springs out to the center of the ring to wipe off his gloves, and we're back to the action. Can Baer put him away? Johnson runs away on Max's charge, then fires a right left to Baer's body. Baer's got him on the rope. The clock is heading to finale. Baer, ducking feeble blows by Johnson, is standing there just tearing Johnson's head to shreds. Left and right to the head by Max Baer. Johnson could fall again. He could fall again, but there is the bell.
Johnson was a master at staying away, Guy, even when he was in trouble, but this will be an altogether different fight next week. The ring simply won't be big enough to keep Baer and Marciano from ripping each other up.
If Baer had kept in shape, Murray, boxing people seem to think he could have done almost anything. For example, I've been talking to Chris Dundee, the famous Miami Beach boxing promoter, about Max.
Max Baer could take a good punch. He could give a good punch. He was a happy-go-lucky type of man. He never took his business seriously.
What about Rocky Marciano?
Rocky Marciano was probably one of the toughest fighters that ever lived. Rocky had one good thing going for him. He had condition. He was always in great condition. And Rocky could punch. Rocky could hit you in the arms and paralyze you. And he could take a good punch. The only bad thing about Rocky was that he was small for a heavyweight. As heavyweights go, he was not a big man. He was a small fellow. And his arms were very short. So Rocky had to depend on his strength and stamina and heart. He had all heart.
In 1 minute, we'll hear Joe Louis's opinion about Baer and Marciano.
One thing we learned, Joe Louis, like everybody who ever saw him, was impressed by Baer's punch.
Baer had the tools and everything, probably been the greatest of all of us, if he had wanted to, but he just couldn't, he just wouldn't take the fight game as serious as I've taken it, or a lot of other fighters taking it.
Joe, what about a fight between Joe Louis and Rocky Marciano?
Well, I can say that very easy. Marciano beat me when I did.
Oh, yeah, now that wasn't when you were at your best. I'm talking about when you were 28 years old.
Oh, I don't know. Marciano's type of fighter, I think it's good enough and strong enough and technically good enough point to fight anybody. And I don't think that no one, regardless of Dempsey or me, could say that I could beat Marciano. I think the fight would be it's a close fight. Have to be a close fight because he's too strong and he takes a good punch and you just can't say that I could beat him. I would like to say that I would fight him, all right, but who will win that I wouldn't know. But I'd like to be paid for the fight, though. I think we would draw a little money, though.
We talked with Nat Fleischer, publisher of Ring Magazine, one of the nationally recognized experts on boxing, past and present, and got his opinion about Max Baer.
Max Baer was what you would call a comedy fighter. He was a man who did not take his work too seriously, and once he had control of a fight, he never went after his man in an effort to end it. Baer was a very powerful hitter, and if it weren't for his playboy tactics, would undoubtedly have gotten into the first 10 of all greats.
In what would have to be regarded as the real surprise of the tournament's early fights, Baer outpointed Johnson, the man Fleischer rates as the greatest heavyweight who ever lived. Angelo Dundee is a man who saw things in Baer that not everyone saw. Perhaps as a manager and trainer, he thinks about bringing out those things. We asked him about Max Baer.
One of the most thrilling fights I ever saw. I saw him fight, and to me, he should have been a great fighter, not a good fighter, because he can knock you out, he can box you, keep you on the end of his long left hand, he can hurt you with body shots. Vastly underrated.
Of course, Angelo likes Rocky Marciano. Everybody in boxing does.
The Rock was the most underrated heavyweight of all time, because to me, The Rock was not given any credit for his effectiveness. In other words, he was very effective at getting away from punches, and all they ever said was he took punches. I seen him. He's the only heavyweight that I know could punch out of a slip and hit you with 10 punches on the way up out of the slip. In other words, a very difficult maneuver. In other words, I seen him when he looked like he had 2 left foot. He couldn't even walk properly. And I think he did a fantastic job, and he is the only heavyweight champion to retire undefeated.
Maybe Jack Sharkey summed up Baer best.
Well, he's a rough, tough guy. He's a heck of a guy to meet in a dark street some night, because there's something's got to happen.
In a minute, we'll be back to wrap up tonight's fight. Well, that's about it from Miami Convention Hall, where Joe Louis TKO'd Ruby Bob Fitzsimmons in the 10th round tonight to move into the semifinals of the all-time heavyweight championship against Jack Dempsey. Next week, another great match between two of the greatest sluggers ever to step into the ring. Rocky Marciano, the Brockton blockbuster, versus Max Baer, Livermore Larimer. Same time, same station. Don't miss it. Till then, this is Murray Warner and Guy LeBeau saying thanks for listening. We'll be expecting you next week. From Miami, Florida, you've been listening to the All-Time Heavyweight Tournament, a copyrighted feature of Warner Productions. Reproduction or rebroadcast of any part of this series without the written consent of the producer is prohibited. The All-Time Heavyweight Tournament is recorded and computerized.
This is Murray Warner, president of Warner Productions. For the past 12 weeks on this radio station, you've heard a series of computerized fights matching the greatest heavyweights who ever lived in an elimination series for the all-time heavyweight championship of the world. This Monday night, we come to the first fight of the semifinals. Just 3 fights remain. We could use a lot of razzle-dazzle, hoopla, trite phrases, and cliches like exciting, thrilling, action-packed, and so on, to try to get you to listen. But we won't. We'll just tell you this. The first semifinal, scheduled for 15 rounds, features Jack Dempsey versus Joe Louis. What more could we say than that? Tune in. You may never again get a chance to hear anything like it.